Make a new Photoshop file set to inches, the width 9 inches, a height of 7 inches, set the resolution to 300. You can leave it in RGB, then say create. Now there's a couple ways of getting the Sphinx in there. I'm going to go ahead and take sphinx.jpg and just drag it in. It's going to give me that error message, but that's fine, it's an old file. And normally you don't want to upsample images, but in this case it's actually going to be okay because this is a high resolution image. So I'll scale this up to fit the screen and then apply that. I'll go ahead and lock that. And then we're going to bring in the kitten girl. And we're going to scale her down a little bit smaller so that she's going to exist kind of here on the side. That up. When you drag it in this way, it's a smart object, so I'm going to rasterize it and then add a mask. Then I'll mask out the background. There's a couple of ways of doing this, but I'll try to do it quickly. Now with that mask, I can do more fine-tuned masking with this. There's a number of different ways. We won't go into it, but you want to avoid having to go in with your brush and just like erasing out the masking. That's not super efficient. So if that's the only way you know how to mask things out, you do want to go to those lynda.com tutorials to find more efficient ways. I'm going to go ahead and add that selection back in. Go to my selection tools and then go to select a mask. And I'll set this to overlay so I can kind of see what this is doing. And I'm just going to kind of adjust some of these properties in here. Again, if you never learned how to do this, or you haven't done it in a while, you probably want to go back to those lynda.com tutorials and review how to do these things. Let's see, let's shift this in that way a little bit. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm trying to get rid of that halo around her hat and the cat. Just to do that a little bit. There we go. I'll say OK. All right. Make sure I have, oops. I have to invert that selection, so I'll do Shift-Command-I to invert it. There we go. That's a little bit better. And then some of this I might have to go in and do some more manual cleanup. So this is, if you just got your Wacom tablet and you haven't used it much yet, this is a good time to start practicing using it. One of the keyboard shortcuts that I'm using here, which you might not be familiar with, is holding down Option and Control at the same time. This is on a Mac, Option and Control, and going left and right or up and down to make it harder and softer, and also to change the size. So especially with a Wacom tablet, that will work a lot better. So you want to mask her out completely. And we'll use the quick selection tool for some of this. Again, with the quick selection tool, you can use that same keyboard shortcut. I'm toggling my black and my white very quickly by hitting X to toggle the black and the white for the sake of the masking. If I need to deselect, I can do Command D to deselect parts. And I'm doing this sort of willy-nilly here, but you should take your time with this, make this look pretty good. Make sure you don't get rid of too much of her hair. If you do, you can hold on the Option key to subtract from the selection. All right. So probably, normally I would take a little bit more time with that, but I don't want to make this a really long video. So I'm going to go ahead, and again, I'm using keyboard shortcuts. I'm doing this very quickly. So I'm holding down the Option to get that magnifying glass, but if you're not sure how to do this, again, use those lynda.com tutorials. All right, so there's the girl. I'm going to go ahead and save this since I haven't saved a while. You want to make sure you save it as a PSD. So save it as your last name _ PSD review. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and drag in the nebula. And I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger so that it can occupy the whole screen. And then I'm going to set this to overlay. So the blending mode for that layer is overlay. And I want you to rename this overlay. There we go. Now I'm going to add a mask to that. And I'm just going to gently mask out her eyes a little bit, not quite that much. So I'm going to change the opacity of this. I want it to be a very soft brush and a little bit smaller. But basically I want to be able to lighten up her eyes to be able to see them a little bit better, see her mouth a little bit better. And I want to be able to see these two men over here a little bit better. So I'm going to just mask them out. So if I option click on that mask, I should see something like that. That's what I'll be looking for in your files. Just take that out entirely. There we go. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is drag in zero ice. And again, I'm going to rasterize this layer. And I'll add a mask. We're adding masks so we don't make any destructive changes. And then I'm going to go ahead and kind of delete, actually I'll just delete everything except for the ice. So I'll select that. I'll do Shift Command I to invert the selection, and then that way I can delete everything except for that phrase ice. All right, I'm going to move this up into the corner here, and you can see that it's a little distorted. So what I want to do is straighten this out. What I can do is use guides to sort of figure out where the top and the bottom of the letter should be. So I'll grab another guide right here. And in this case, since I really only want to change that area that I made, I really don't need to use this mask. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that layer mask. So let's see. Whoops, I just lost track of it. Let me try that again. There we go. Apply layer mask. Now I'm going to add another mask to it because I am going to do some more changes to this. But now you can see that the area that I need to distort is just controlled to that image. Then I'm going to go to transform and distort. And I'm just going to kind of willy-nilly a little bit, but I'm going to distort this so that it's a little bit more level. Now with that mask in place, I can go ahead and I'll keep deleting some more of this just with the marquee tool. And I'm going to use the quick selection. And if I grab too much, I can always get it back. There we go. Get some more of that. Again, I'm doing Command D to deselect things so I don't accidentally add too much to the selection. Oops. Command D. A little bit around the eye. Need to get rid of. There we go. So I'll go ahead and also make this a little bit smaller so it's not overlapping with the camel. I just want this to be sort of sitting in the sky over there. And then I'll set this to, oops, where did it go? Color burn. So the last thing I want to do is go in and do some adjustments to the levels. So I'm going to use clipping mask for this. So I'll go back to the girl. And I'm going to go and make a hue and saturation adjustment layer. And I'm going to set it to a clipping mask so that it's only affecting the girl. And then I'll just pull down the saturation about 30 points, 40 points. You can round up to 30, 40 points. So I'll be looking at that saturation just to see that you pull down the saturation. Next, over everything, I'll be making another adjustment layer, and this one is going to be levels, and I'm not going to make it a clipping mask because I want it to affect everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull up the midtones a little bit, we go, to about 1.9. We could actually just round this up to 2. And then I'm going to use the mask on that levels to sort of calm down what's happening here. It's getting a little blown out in the middle. So I'll grab my my brush tool, make it very faint. I'll pull that opacity back down again, toggle that, and then I'm just going to reduce some of that levels adjustment to this middle part of the image so it doesn't get too blown out. And I'll do a little bit to her too. So again, if I look at just the mask, that's just what the mask looks like. It's just reducing the amount of levels adjustment on that last layer. That's it. Then you would save this, and that's your file. You would upload that.